Sangha. Srinadapi sunichena Sorariva sahishnuna Amanina manadena Kirtaniya sadahari is the instruction of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that I must always remain meek, humble, lower than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, I will be able to represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead through my speaking. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Harem Namaiva Kevalam, Kalau nastyeva 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 gatiranyata. In this age of Kali, the only bona fide religious process which will guarantee success is the chanting of the holy name of God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I am continuing my year-long seminar on the science of Kirtanam, chanting. My reference point is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is considered to be the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the very same author, Veda Vyas, who edited the original one Veda into 4, who compiled 108 Upanishads, 18 Puranas, the Mahabharata, and then his scholarly masterpiece, Vedanta Sutra. He has written his own commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, known as Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam can be explained as the relationship between God and his devotees. The Bhagavatam entails 10 subject matters, and the 10th subject matter, the summum bonum, is known as Lord Sri Krishna. The mission statement of the Srimad Bhagavatam, comprising 12 cantos, 335 chapters, 18,000 shlokas, the mission statement in one line, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. There are 6 kinds of avatars, incarnations. But the treatise of Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to illustrate that all those incarnations emanate from Krishna. Here in this temple, we have Radha Raman, Krishna. And Krishna is never separated from his eternal pleasure potency, Hladani, manifested as Srimati Radharani. Tonight, picking up from where I left off, we are entering the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is where the instructions of Shukadeva Goswami start. In the last chapter of the 1st canto, the scene was set. King Parikshit, emperor of the world, the grandson of Arjuna, the heir apparent, the remaining representative of the Kuru dynasty, Pandava family, son of Abhimanyu and Subhadra. So, this Maharaj Parikshit, his mother's name was Uttara. Uttara was his mother's name. Parikshit was saved in the womb of Uttara when Ashvatthama sent the Brahma Astra to kill the last member. But Parikshit was saved in the womb by Krishna. Therefore, one of his names besides Parikshit is Vishnu Rata, one protected by Vishnu. When Maharaj Parikshit was ruling the world, he was cursed to die within 7 days. So, that curse, Parikshit Maharaj could have nullified himself, but he accepted the curse and took it as a sign from Krishna that he should renounce this world and prepare himself, since he had 7 days remaining, that he would prepare himself for the last final test. As we learn from the Bhagavad Gita, whatever the state of being of one's mind at the time of death, that determines where one is taking the next birth. So the moment of death is the final examination, the crucial moment of one's life. So Parikshit wanted to make the best use, having been given notice 7 days left. He decided to give up all eating, all drinking, sleeping, and simply wanted to prepare his mind to give up his body in full God consciousness. And as the final verses of the first canto close, although all the great rishis and sadhus and mystics and even demigods had come to witness the final last 7 days of King Parikshit's life, entered the great sage Shukadev Goswami, who was in the womb of his mother for 12 years. And at the request of Krishna, Shukadev agreed to come out of his mother's womb, because in the womb of his mother he was already self-realized and felt that I am already self-realized here in the womb. If I come out, I may fall down from my self-realization. But Krishna promised Shukadev in the womb of his mother, no, you will not fall into illusion, I guarantee it. Shukadev agreed to come out and immediately took sannyas. Now, 4 years later, he has arrived at this moment when Parikshit Maharaj intends to give up his body in full God consciousness. So the second canto is where Shukadev begins his instructions. The final statement to Shukadev, because the disciple has to approach the Guru in humility. As we learn from the Bhagavad Gita, the disciple approaches the spiritual master in humility and has the mood of submissive service. That is the proper etiquette when approaching a spiritual master. One has a submissive attitude and is ready to render all kinds of menial services to the spiritual master. And when the spiritual master sees that the disciple is fully qualified through that humility and through that service attitude, then like a loving father, the spiritual master agrees to impart all his transcendental knowledge to such a submissive disciple. So that is very, very key, that one has this humility, and service attitude. Then the spiritual master will automatically bless the disciple and grant him full transcendental knowledge of the science of God. So here is Parikshit's final request to Shukadev. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. So here Parikshit is giving us a very good example, personal example. He wants to know what is his duty. A responsible person like Parikshit does not live a capricious life. Parikshit was such a person. It's described later on in the Bhagavatam that Parikshit was always questioning, what is my duty at this moment? If one is a follower of the Vedas, the follower of the Vedas always has this concept of duty. You may use the word dharma. What is my duty at this moment? Whether one be a man or a woman, young or old, the Vedic way of life is one of consciousness, one of conscientiousness, one of always knowing what am I supposed to do. And he also says what I should not do, because that is mentioned by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. The demon, he does not know what he should do, and he does not know what he should not do. But the dharmic person, like Parikshit, very much wants to know, what are the things I'm supposed to do, and what are the things that are prohibited to me? One, of course, learns these things by accepting a spiritual master and also by adhering to the tenets of the scriptures. Just in the same way, one is called a law-abiding citizen because the citizen knows what he can or what he's supposed to do, what he's not supposed to do. Just in the same way, when you want to get the license to drive an automobile, besides learning the mechanical art of manipulating the machine, there is a huge book of rules of the road. And you also have to take an examination to show that you are aware of the rules of the road. Because when the day comes and the officer stops you and writes you a ticket, it is useless for you to say, I didn't know. It'll make no difference to the judge. Judge, I didn't know it was wrong to go 100 miles an hour in the school zone. No. You were supposed to know. So in the same way, human life, ignorance is no excuse. Indeed, in this Srimad Bhagavatam, later on, Shukadeva Goswami will point out to Parikshit that the root cause of sinful life is ignorance, not knowing what is to be done and what is not to be done. That is why studying Bhagavad Gita is essential, because there are so many Vedic texts. One book is sufficient to get a good grasp of what is things I'm supposed to do and what I'm not supposed to do. That book is known as Bhagavad Gita. If you learn Bhagavad Gita properly, you will have a very good idea what is to be done and what is not to be done. So, Parikshit now has asked his question to his spiritual master, and now Shukadeva Goswami will begin his reply. My dear king, your question is glorious because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all kinds of transcendentalists. So, first point here, the spiritual master is pleased by the disciple's question. Sometimes, when the disciple is not proper, he asks improper questions to the spiritual master. And that does nobody any good. But here, Shukadev has pointed out, yes, not only is it a good question, it is a glorious question. And then he explains why. It is beneficial to all kinds of people. This is the beauty of this Srimad Bhagavatam, that it is not narrow-minded. It is such a subject matter that it is applicable to everyone. And he says the answer to your question is the prime subject matter for hearing. This hearing is the beginning of spiritual life. Everything begins with hearing. If you hear from the proper source, then you will get good knowledge. All day long, we're hearing something. We're on the cell phone, or we're hearing the news report, or we're hearing the conversation. All day long, we're hearing. But there are two kinds of hearing: mundane, materialistic hearing and transcendental hearing. You can also be considered glorious because you have agreed to hear this message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So since you have agreed to come here tonight and hear this message of Srimad Bhagavatam, you are also glorious. You're not wasting your time. People throughout the world, day after day, they're spending their time hearing so many things, but there is no transcendental profit. So, the question that was asked by Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadeva is saying, yes, this is the real question. And my answer is beneficial to everyone, not some narrow sectarian group. It's good for everyone. Let us see what Shukadeva Goswami says next. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. This is the same thing Krishna says in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the 2nd chapter of Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that if you're on this Bhagavad Gita path, you have only one intention, single-minded intention. What is that single-minded intention? How to achieve liberation and go back home, back to Godhead. That is, if you accept Bhagavad Gita, then you have only one goal in mind: how to leave this material world once and for all and return back home, back to Krishna. And then Krishna says, otherwise, Bahushaka Hianantascha. The person who is not on this path of Bhagavad Gita, then their intelligence is many branched. They have interest here, interest there, all over. So Shukadev is saying here, people who, like he says, blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth. For instance, in the Mahabharata, Dhritarashtra is described not that just he was materially blind, but he was also spiritually blind. Because although he was warned by his brother Vidura, by the great Bhishma Dev and others, Dhritarashtra was blind in his attachment for his sons headed by the evil Duryodhana. And because of his blind attachment, what was the eventual outcome? He lost everything. His blind attachment didn't save his 100 sons. He lost every one of them. And he was warned, not once, not twice, repeatedly. But not only was Dhritarashtra physically blind, internally he was blind. And there are many people like that in the world. They're only concerned with this material world. How to make money. Money, money, money. Sweeter than honey. They're mad after it. Mad after material acquisition. Mad after more and more materialistic amenities, materialistic knowledge, but blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth. Ultimate truth means absolute truth. Ultimate absolute truth means what is stated in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Because Bhagavad Gita is the beginning of transcendental knowledge. Bhagavad Gita is not mundane. It's not material. It's transcendental. Spoken by Adhoksaja. Adhoksaja means that person who is beyond the range of the material senses. So, Bhagavad Gita, what is the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita? You are spirit. You are not your body. You are not your mind. You're not American, Indian, man, woman. These are temporary designations. Just as it would be so foolish to identify yourself. Oh, I am Mercedes-Benz because I drive a Mercedes-Benz car. Or I'm a Toyota Corolla. That's not your identity. That's your car. And in the same way, to identify as man or woman, American, Indian, it's as foolish as that. It's no different. That is not my eternal identity. My eternal identity is identified for me by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna begins by saying, first of all, what you're not. You're not your body, you're not your mind, your spirit soul. And then Krishna later in Bhagavad Gita qualifies it. Not only are you spirit soul, but you are part and parcel of me. Mama eva angsha. Krishna says in chapter 15, Mama eva angsha. You are my angsha. You are my part and parcel. You have my spiritual qualities. You are spiritual like me. The difference, Krishna says, between me and us, I am unlimited, Krishna says. You are limited. Other than that, there is no difference. We are originally spiritual. We are spiritual. But we are minutely spiritual. Individual. Oh, that's another very important concept that we learned from Bhagavad Gita. That I am eternally an individual. I was an individual in the past. I'm an individual now. I will continue to be an individual person. Just in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter is called Purushottama Yoga. Purusha Uttama. Krishna is known as Purusha, person, but he's the Uttama, the topmost, the source of all other Purushas. We are also Purusha, but we are finite. We don't have the same capacity as Krishna, but we share all the same qualities, just to a minute degree. So the Bhagavad Gita teaches what is ultimate truth. But materialistic persons, they're blind. You've heard it so many times. You meet someone, conversation, and then you mention something about spiritual life. Oh, yes, I'll get into that when I get older. Because they think I'm young, let me enjoy. Ha ha. Let me enjoy now. But there's a problem. He says that when he's 20, he says it when he's 50, and I have the experience of speaking to a 70-year-old man, and he said to me, Swamiji, now he's 70 years old. He said to me, he was just telling me, Swamiji, I like to go to the clubs. I like to drink. I like to watch the dancing girls. So I said to him, you're 70 years old. You are a Hindu man. When are you going to begin spiritual life? When I get old. He's 70 years old. He doesn't think he's old. This is what we call Maya. And this is what Sukadeva is saying. Blind to the knowledge of absolute truth. Now Shukadeva Goswami, you've heard of the word sadhu. There's different definitions. One definition is one who cuts. Sometimes the saintly person speaks in such a way that it is very harsh sounding. But he has to do that to cut through our illusion, to wake us up. Just like this also happens in a grander scale. I remember very distinctly, after 9/11, you all remember 9/11. What were they saying on the radio? All of a sudden, the churches were full. Before 9/11, people didn't go to church. After 9/11, the churches were full. Everybody was praying. So sometimes the material nature or the laws of nature act in such a way that we get what is called a wake-up call. So the sadhu is like that. Sometimes the sadhu speaks in such a way as to wake us up, because sometimes we are also blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth. So this next statement of Shukadeva is very cutting.